It started the way most roommate stories start, with convenience and a handshake. We weren't friends, not really. Just two adults who needed a place to live, who could pay rent on time, and who agreed to keep to ourselves. That was the deal. That was the unspoken rule, and for a while, it worked. He was someone I'd known since college, the kind of person who was always around, but never close. We'd share the same class projects, the same group chats, the same casual laughs. But after graduation, we went our separate ways. Then, a year later, we ended up sharing a place again. Not because we wanted to, but because it was easy. It was familiar. It was a compromise we both accepted. At first, the only real problem was his mouth. Not because he said anything particularly mean, but because he said things like they were jokes, and the jokes always landed on me. He'd come into the kitchen and say, "Must be nice to have an easy job," like it was a compliment. If I asked him to clean up his dishes, he'd reply with a laugh and a shrug. "Wow, you're really sensitive today," he'd say. Like I was the problem for asking someone to do something basic. Like I was fragile for wanting to live in a clean house. If I called him out, he'd just smile and say, "I'm just being honest." People should be tougher. That sentence stuck with me more than anything else. Not because it was profound, but because it was the exact kind of thing he said when he wanted to be cruel without admitting it. He wasn't insulting me. He was just being honest. He wasn't being rude. He was telling the truth. He wasn't being mean. He was helping me become tougher. It was the perfect disguise. The thing about him was that he never did anything huge, nothing worth a fight, just constant, low-grade disrespect. A drip of sarcasm, a drip of criticism, a drip of passive-aggressive jokes. It made me dread being in my own kitchen. It made me feel like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. So I tried to handle it like an adult. I tried talking to him once, calmly like a normal person. I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. I was sitting at the table with my laptop open, trying to work. He was standing at the sink, washing a mug. "Hey," I said, "can you please stop making jokes about my work? It's not funny." He turned and looked at me like I'd asked him to do something impossible. "Relax," he said. "I'm just honest." People should be tougher. I stared at him for a moment, then nodded. "Okay," I said. "Got it. That was it. No apology." No attempt to change, just his usual confident smile like he'd won. After that, I stopped reacting. I stopped giving him the satisfaction of the response. I stopped getting angry. I stopped defending myself. I stopped explaining. I stopped trying to prove I wasn't sensitive. Instead, I started doing something he never expected. I started taking him at his word. Whenever he made one of those jokes, I treated it like feedback, like advice, like he was actually trying to help me become tougher. If he said, "You're being dramatic," I'd say, "Good to know," and write it down in my notes app. Like it was important. If he said, "Relax, it's not a big deal," I'd smile and say, "Okay, I'll remember that." If he said, "You're overthinking it," I'd nod like I was grateful for the correction. At first, he didn't notice. He was used to people reacting. He was used to people getting defensive. He was used to the drama. But I wasn't giving him that anymore. I was giving him something else. I was giving him the truth. And the truth was, he didn't like it. The first time he noticed, it was subtle. We had friends over one night, a small group, nothing crazy. The kind of night where everyone laughs, drinks, and talks about nothing important. He did his usual thing, made a joke about how I'm uptight about dishes. "Man," he said, grinning, "you're so serious about the dishes. It's like you're running a military operation." Everyone laughed. I smiled. Then I said, very politely, "You told me before that honesty is important, so I'm glad you're being honest." He laughed, but it was a confused laugh, like he didn't know how to respond. Over the next few weeks, I kept doing it. Calm, pleasant, no emotion, no anger, no reaction. When he made a comment about my cooking, I wrote it down. When he corrected how I folded laundry, I wrote it down. When he told me I was too sensitive, I wrote it down. I stopped covering for him too. If he left the trash overflowing, I didn't clean it. I didn't pretend it didn't exist. I didn't make excuses for him. I let it be. And when the landlord asked why the trash was overflowing, I repeated his words back. "Oh," I said. "He said it's not a big deal." The landlord stared at me. "And he thinks people should be tougher about that stuff," I added, almost cheerfully. The landlord didn't know what to say. He just nodded and walked away. When a mutual friend asked why the living room was always a mess, I said, "He thinks people should be tougher about that." It wasn't even a dramatic accusation. It was just truth, plain and simple. Slowly, people started looking at him differently, not angrily, just with that pause. That little eyebrow raised, that silent, huh. His joke stopped landing. He would say something, and the room would go quiet for a second. He'd try to laugh it off, but it sounded forced. I mean, he'd say, "Unless you don't like that." I'm kidding, obviously. It was always too late. The damage was already done. The moment had passed. The joke had died. One night, he finally snapped. We were in the kitchen again, the same old place, the same old tension. I was making dinner. He was leaning against the counter, scrolling on his phone. "Why are you being so weird?" he asked, suddenly. "You're acting passive-aggressive." I kept stirring the pot. I didn't look at him. "I'm not being weird," I said. "I'm taking your advice seriously," he frowned. "What? You told me to be tougher," I said. "You told me I'm too sensitive. You told me I'm dramatic. So I'm trying not to be." He stared at me for a long moment. His face changed from confusion to anger to something else, something like realization. Then he went quiet. Not the quiet of someone who's thinking. The quiet of someone who's lost control. After that, the comments started to dry up. He didn't apologize. He didn't change. He just stopped. It wasn't because I made him feel guilty. It wasn't because I confronted him. It was because I refused to give him what he wanted. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to defend myself. He wanted me to show that his words mattered. I stopped letting his words matter. A month later, he moved out. He told someone in that same confident tone he always used that I was hard to read. Honestly, it was the best compliment I ever got. Because he didn't know what to do with me anymore. He couldn't control me. He couldn't use his words like weapons. He couldn't make me feel small. He had lived with his own words. And in the end, he didn't like the way it felt. He left the apartment, leaving behind a mess of dishes and empty bottles, and a note that said, "Sorry for being difficult, it wasn't a real apology." It was just a line he could use to make himself feel better, but it was enough. Because I didn't need a dramatic ending. I didn't need a confrontation. I didn't need a revenge the way movies show it. I just needed to stop reacting. I needed to let him live with his own words. And that was the quietest, most satisfying revenge I ever had.